All right. Well, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are. Let's get back into game three. I didn't even realize this was the finals, so it's a little interesting that we're recording these first, but I guess we will have to make do with the decision we have made. So let's just finish up this series so that we can finish up this entire world's uh, episodic series as a whole, and we'll get to it. Once again, skipping draft for the most part, just because of how outdated it is, which is of course my bad. I should have done this, after Worlds. But I do know and have learned a lot more about the game since then, so I think it's actually better that we're doing this now. Okay. And of course, a nod to previous videos, but the meta has not completely shifted so much to where the champions are unrecognizable. That's always helpful. Okay, a little draft analysis then for Suning versus Demon here for game three. Considering it's 1-1 the scoreboard, it's an important game. Jax versus Kennen is pretty bad for Jax. He has the ability to jump on the Kennen at any given point with the Q, which is nice for aggression, but you're going to lose quite a bit of HP if you choose to do so, because the dodge is going to not help you at all in the face of like QEW as the combo, stunning you instantly as the Kennen, and also Kennen is going to make your team fights quite difficult. So I'm not sure if they picked Jax into Kennen, which would have been an interesting pick. That would have been basically Ben saying he's a lot better than Nuguri, and can just kind of shit all over the Kennen, because of course Jax has the easier time against range champions just with the no skill shot gap closer with the Q, the dodge that enables him to stick onto an enemy by stunning them, and of course just the raw damage that comes after level 6. I wouldn't be surprised if Jax was seen as a counter to Kennen, or was somewhat favorable into it, but at the same time, I've played that matchup. I don't really like it, and I know some people that absolutely hate playing Jax into Kennen. So I'm not entirely sure how this matchup actually goes, which is bad for me considering I'm the top lane positional coach. I should know it more thoroughly, but it's winnable for both sides, but with an edge to Kennen is what I would say. Nidalee versus Graves, pretty standard handshake back then. Kali versus Syndra, this is going to be a battle between Syndra's mana pool, which I think was the 40 mana Q back then, and the Akali's ability to sustain with D-Shield, Second Wind, and Fleet Footwork. So if she mistrades, she's going to have to burn TP, and if Syndra runs out of mana, he's going to have to force a recall, which Syndra can punish by trying to stop that, by all-inning at like level 4, level 5, with Q and W, or just back in TP and force the Akali TP, which is usually standard handshake. And of course you have Ezreal Alistar to Jhin Braum, both typically quote-unquote scaling lanes. The Ezreal Alistar is going to be nice in the sense that Ezreal can sit under turret and farm, and the Jhin Braum are going to have a hard time to dive him, and the Alistar can roam. But we'll see how that goes. In terms of game plans, my first impressions are blue side. The Nidalee can try and path towards the top side here just for the pure fight aspect of the Jax. The Ezreal Alistar doesn't get prio into the Jhin Braum, and even though they can try and play for fight Ezreal without heal, it's going to be a little difficult. Scuttle Crab is going to be difficult to achieve regardless of the Nidalee anywhere on the map, considering Syndra's prio, and also the fact that both Kennen and Jhin Braum have push. It's a hard game for Nidalee. So you have two options whenever you do this. You can try and path opposite to the Graves, which is a bit of a guessing game, considering you don't know where he's starting when you pick the side you're starting on. But then you also have the problem of, if you're pathing opposite to him, then he might cross the map and try and disrupt your Scuttle Crab with the prio he has everywhere. So your second option is you can transition gank a lane to force prio in a location, which means you can try and burn Syndra flash in the mid lane by preemptively ganking. The problem with this, of course, is going to be that if you cut clear to gank just to guarantee a Scuttle Crab, you're going to be down a lot of tempo to the enemy jungler if you don't kill the laner that you're ganking. Just burning flash doesn't put gold in the bank. Okay. So let's see what the Nidalee tries to do. But for Graves, it's going to be a pretty simple game. His goal is to screw the Nidalee as hard as possible, considering he has prio in all 3 lanes, which is a pretty bad look for Suning's early game. The champions that they've chosen to play this game with, but we will have to see. Although, the Kennen has Call Start, which tells me that my initial impressions about the matchup were correct, because it's very ego if it's a losing matchup. So, yeah, and this is kind of what I remember doing as Jax. I remember jumping on the Kennen Eing away, and I'd lose the trade every single time. So, even though it seems like Jax might have a decent time into the Kennen because he can just jump on him over and over again, he doesn't actually win the auto trades because of Kennen's abilities, and also Kennen running him down afterwards. So it's pretty hard to play as the Jax. But we'll see if his sustain is enough with 3 Crypting Pots to make Nuggery regret his Cull HP pot decision. So you've got Nidalee pathing down and Graves pathing up, which is probably the best case scenario for the Nidalee. Graves pathing up to defend the Kennen as the Kennen tries to poke the Jax as much as possible makes sense to me. But at the same time, I'm surprised we didn't see a late invade. Because if we saw a late invade with the triple ranged and also the Braum level 1, which is much stronger than the Alistar level 1. He can forcibly identify where the Nidalee's starting, interact with that game plan, and try and triple sector with the prio that he has in all 3 lanes. I think this was probably the best line to play. I'm surprised I didn't see this game, just considering they have ranged or prio in all 3, and that's the fastest way to identify where Nidalee is, and also to get the biggest jungle advantage as fast as possible. Considering playing for ganks here, and even though the Kennen win condition of poking the Jax is nice, it doesn't seem to me that he'll be able to get through all 3 Crypting Pots and then dive the Jax fast enough with his crash. And Kennen Graves is not exactly the best dive anyway. Yeah, so late invade is what I would preferred from the side of Damwon in this game. I don't think it's a flip at all. And, okay, that's a nice trade for the Jax, just EQing straight onto Nuggery. Nuggery trades back, but he has Cull and HP pot, so he's going to be regretting that decision, I think. I didn't think the matchup was that easy for the Kennen to the point where you can disregard the extra HP, and here comes Bin again. So he's literally just EQing and winning the trade over and over again. I think this progressively gets worse and worse for the Jax, though, considering once the Kennen abilities do more damage, and now he's level 3, he could insta-stun the guy. It's a little bit bad, because if you're trading E just to do that initial trade damage, then of course you have nothing left after the Kennen comes out of stun. But now Kennen is chunked down to around 50%. Jax just did the exact same trade pattern again. But here's Kenyon to disrupt, and Jax is in a bit of trouble here. Oh, Nuggery actually didn't commit forward. He's just maybe going to burn Flash. That's probably expected. Yeah. Oh, he should just Flash earlier. I don't really know. I know this is like a little time ago where people constantly improve, but not flashing there was so ego. That's incredible. I actually that kill should never happen. Like that is unreal that Graves got that kill there. That is so bad. Okay, so SFM looks like he's playing for a second Grand Prix spawn or just Vision. Yeah, he's just Vision. He's gonna hit the plant. He's gonna recall. He's going to get out of here. And in terms of lead generation lines, which we've talked about a lot before, with the strong side being Ezreal or Alistar, the weird thing about this is that Ezreal Alistar doesn't have control of the wave into Jhin and Braum. They just don't, because Jhin can always thin out their prio with Q, and Ezreal just can't match that pure wave clear. They also can't zone the Jhin effectively because of the Braum into Alistar matchup. So this is a hard game for Suning to get a lead in the early game, is what I'm saying. Like, it's pretty much, I can't really think of any lead generation lines possible because the prio that they generate is just not like great. So they're really just playing to scale this game. Like they're just trying to get their champions out of laning phase and then team fight a bunch with the Jax trying to survive around the Kennen, although now dying and burning Flash and TP, it's gonna be a little hard to do. And with the jungle gank here from the bounce out, if they can get this kill, I think Nuggery just CP back to wave to try and punish the Jax even more. So if the Kennen dies here, it's real bad for him. And it's pretty interesting that Damwon chose to pull this TP, considering the Graves looked like he's playing for second Raptor respawn, which if that was the call a while ago from the mid prio and the bot prio for pulling mid TP, then pulling top TP is not correct here because you just would let the wave crash and you would play under turret, and on the bounce back you're fine. They could be concerned about a freeze, but I don't think the Kennen is worried about Jax Nidalee if he just plays back at range. And Nidalee can't stick around the top side that long anyway. And trading sides here makes a lot of sense if you want to push the Dragon Wing condition. I'm not a huge fan of the Dragon Wing conditions. I think they could be doing a lot more with the prio they have in all 3 lanes. Damwon, once again, they can be doing more than just splitting the map and just constantly invading the Nidalee over and over again. Late invade is a good way to start it. It's a bit sad that the Graves can't play like a triple sector, which means he does, just as an example, red Raptors Gromp, which gives you level 3, and then straight into the enemy bot side. So if he predicted the Nidalee was going to path down, because he has prio in both mid and bot lane, he could just quote-unquote flip the game like that and just straight up invader and put her down into the dirt as far as possible. So if you notice, he did get the kill on the top side, which was so illegal because Jack should have just flashed, and that's a mechanical mistake that's kind of unacceptable, honestly, at this level of play. But then if you look at the rest of the scoreboard, it's pretty dead even across the board except for that one kill, which is real bad. for Dam 1, considering how much prio they should have, and how much they could do with it. So not an aggressive enough for my tastes. They should be pushing this lead like nothing else. But, you know, it's not like they get outscaled by any huge amount either. Like, the Akali Syndra matchup is technically being outscaled by the Akali because she's surviving with a minimal HP loss in the time of the game where she should have the most pressure. And, of course, later in the game, Akali versus Syndra, it's very difficult for Syndra to self-peel herself against Akali. Our E-combo makes it so that you just kind of die in any jungle fight. So, pretty bad for... I didn't realize that was Omnistone Italy. That's pretty interesting. So pretty bad for Dam 1, not utilizing that Akali Syndra prio in the early game to do anything interesting. A couple CS advantage for the Syndras, maybe a little less than what's expected in this matchup, but teleport advantage is not even generated. Bot lane for Dam 1 obviously is being weak-sided, so giving the Nidalee a gank is not a great option. One thing they could have played for with the Jhin Braum is to zone the Ezreal Alistar on level 1, because of the Braum strength. And then after that, play for a 3-wave crash of their own, although it's not super great because they can't stop the Ezreal from queuing the wave over and over again. They can push wave 3 real fast with Jhin Q and W. So because of that, they can get it like a cheater off. The problem of that, with that, of course, you're super afraid of disruption gank by the Nidalee, like super afraid. The idea that Nidalee can go blue Gromp Wolves, just skip Raptors, skip Red, skip Krugs, and run straight to bot lane. Now you have Syndra in the mid lane, which means that that problem can be averted very easily just by having the Syndra ward level 1 on the Raptor camp. Simple as that. Or he can 2-wave crash mid lane and ward the Raptor camp. Either way, you're going to identify the Nidalee path, and then your bot lane can play for the most advantage in this case, just playing on the bounce back and gaining a CS advantage that way for the Jhin Braum. So even though they're weak side, they can utilize their mid prio to have more freedom in the game, in what they can do aggressively as an option in the bot lane. They chose not to do that this game. That's okay. And when I say that's okay, I mean it's not okay, but you know they're winning anyway, so I guess. And of course we know who won Worlds at this point. I hope I'm not spoiling it, so it's not really spoilers. I'm sorry, guys. Suning did not win. All right. So gank on the top side, Jax goes down again. It's a bit of a sad matchup here, and then Graves gets the second kill. But what, like again, like the 1.5k gold lead is nice here. They got both the dragon and the Rift Herald. So they're getting quote unquote everything in the first 9 minutes. They're not doing it as efficiently as possible, but they're pressing forward with their early game lead with the prio that they have, which is expected. Yeah, Ben just got blasted from Fog right there. It's pretty sad for him. And now you have to wonder, okay, what's the game plan going forward for Blue side, considering now that their champions are going to come online at like the 1 item mark. Probably more than the enemies, I'd say, because you have Warrior on the Graves and the Runic on the Nidalee, and Nidalee can chain Spear with Alistar combo or Jack stun to pretty much one-shot someone without having to interact with them. Or if he wants to, he can just jump on them and do more. And Graves is going to be more effective at 2 items, I think. Nidalee's typically, if I remember, like a more 1-item champion with the Runic, which was a long time ago. Of course, Ezreal always had a decent mana immune power spike, but he was always a 2-item champion back then. Oh, wow, that flash forward. They're trying to punish the Kennen lack of flash, which they are. And Sword Art takes the kill. Taking this kill, it's understandable considering how close he was to the turret, but I think they should have tried to give it to Ben. Just out of discipline. It doesn't seem like he even tried. Yeah, Nugget goes down. He's not very happy about that. Okay. So we talked about like draft in terms of lead generation lines, right? And it's the idea that if you're going to draft this kind of scaling from blue side, you need to have like a very clear win condition later in the game. In terms of like why you were not able to play the game in the early game. Like, why is that allowed? Is that something that we want in draft? Obviously, it doesn't feel great to have. But in this case, I don't think their scaling is really justified. I think that means that they just lost draft. Because think about it, right? If you can't win the early game by any means, because you lose prio on all 3 lanes, and your jungle matchup's not even that good to overcome that, then your scaling must be so great that it doesn't matter if you're down 5k gold at 35 minutes or no, 25 minutes. You can still have a chance to win the game because you had nothing to do in the early game. I don't think this is necessarily true here because you have Syndra into the Jax and the Akali, which the Akali is not going to be great in a 1v1. In fact, you're completely countered. But in the team fights, you can definitely shut down the Akali a bit more. You have Kennen, which is going to make, once again, Jax and Akali's life really hard. Nidalee pairs really well with like poke style, which goes good with the Ezreal, but that's it. You just have the Nidalee Ezreal poke win condition, which is pretty good against the enemy champions actually, considering the outrange, the Graves, and the Syndra if they can land the Ezreal Qs and the Nidalee spears. But you can't outrange the Jhin once he gets rapid fire cannon. The Braum doesn't really care; he can block it, and then Kennen is constantly looking for flanks. So Jax outscales Kennen on the side lane in terms of the 1v1 split push, but then you have this problem where he can't survive early game to get to a point where he's strong enough to actually match the Kennen who has a gold advantage. Now he did just get the kill in the plates in the top side here, which is absolutely huge for sitting because now they have like that split push win condition, which is what they desperately need. They basically need a way to win the game. That's what you're looking for from draft. You lose if you're going to lose every dragon, you're going to lose every Rift Herald, and honestly, Damwon could have punished them even more. Then you have to have something in return. And that's like some hyper scaling that kind of wins you the game at a certain point. That's what you're playing for. I don't like playing like that, but if you're going to play like that, that's fine. It just doesn't seem like Sitting has that. The Alistar is not going to be that big of a payoff. It's nice into the Kennen. You can W the Kennen away. It's okay into Graves, although if Graves flashes your combo, you're a bit sad. But otherwise, you can stop it from doing damage in a decent way. Obviously, don't get one shot by the Syndra. So it's not like they're completely lost. Like they have decent champions with the enemies in the mid game. And as you can see, even at this stage, like their champions are coming online a bit more. They get this little team fight here where Showmaker goes down. But it's gonna be a hard game for Suning as the game continues. It's gonna be hard to get push Prio into objectives. They're already down 2 dragons. I hope it's not Cloud Soul for Damwon's sake. I actually don't know what dragon it is. Oh yeah, it is Cloud Soul. That's depressing. So with Cloud Soul being the soul here, it's not like a true win condition for red side. If it were Ocean, especially against the Ezreal and Nidalee, that kind of makes their champions a lot worse. So that would have been nice. But now Damwon has to win the game through other methods rather than just relying on Soul to give them a massive advantage in these team fights. That's actually really tragic. I hate Cloud Soul like that. You spent all this time getting 2 dragons and nothing else, and now it's a Cloud Soul. You basically just wasted your time. I mean, they're still going to play for it, obviously, because it is helpful, but it's not like a Armageddon win condition for sure. At least that's what I think. There's some people that think the Cloud Souls are good, but in terms of raw gold stats provided, its movement speed can change fights on some levels, but in a straight up brawl where everyone has to stand still to hit people, it's going to be difficult to use the movement speed to change a fight compared to if you didn't have it. Okay. So 2 item spikes are going to come up shortly here for both teams. Who does this favor? Well, the Jax is going to be delayed towards the Kennen, so I don't think he'll ever be able to truly utilize it in this matchup, although it's going to get better and better for him as time goes on. You've got the jungle matchup, which should be favored to the Graves at 2 items and forward in terms of how much raw damage he's providing to these team fights, especially since the Nidalee just can't... the win condition with the Nidalee poke is not really held with the rest of the composition. If he had like Jace or etc., the rest of the team composition, Karma, then you can kind of chain these abilities together and absolutely demolish people from fights. But with just the Spear and just the Ezreal Qs, it's hard to put enough chip damage to really deter team fight position. Then you've got the Akali Syndra, which we already mentioned. Akali's going to be much better in the skirmishes and the small fights like 3v3s or isolated 2v2s and inside the pockets of team fights. And then Syndra should ideally be better in a straight up 5v5 if Akali can't find space to do anything because of Kennen ult, because of Syndra EQ, because of Braum QR. And then you have Ezreal Jhin, which is just a compositional like who's better against the other. Jhin is actually pretty good against enemy champions except for the Jax. Although Jax, he can kite the Jax a bit easier with his massive range and traps. But he's really, really nice into the Ezreal Nidalee Akali. So here's a tower dive off the crash. Diving a Kennen is always going to be a bit interesting, and they get punished for it. They didn't have enough manpower to one-shot the cannon. Let's go look at the execution. I mean, I think he flashed the combo, and if you flash the combo, then of course that dive just fails. That dive is just way too ambitious. But blue side honestly shouldn't be forcing like that. Just looking at their scaling, and when I say forcing, I don't mean they should never go for any plays ever. That's just wrong. You need to lead generate whenever you can. It's just the concept of that dive is already so innately risky because you know the cannon has flash, you know the cannon has ultimate. The question is, if they get more tempo and they get whatever gold, it's just going to make red games easier and easier versus your blue side. Blue side, you want to get your original 2 items, you want to get and survive as a team until then. You want to get your Akali to 2 items. You want to get your Jax to 2 items. These are all quote-unquote outscaling their counterparts. Well, Israel's going to be stronger at 2 items than the Jhin anyway. And then, of course, the Jin's going to outscale after that. So they get the return kill onto Nuguri because he just overstays. Which honestly doesn't matter too much Nuguri, but he is very sad in the camera there. He is not happy. Guess it is World's Finals after all. But they're up 5k gold with just a 1 kill lead from the 3 turrets that they have. And now some of the CS advantages that they've accumulated in the top side. A little bit in the bot and the mid. But like I said, they could have done more than this if they played sharper lines. But we'll be saying that for most of these games, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Okay, so Angel's a bit isolated. She should be absolutely fine here because she could just ult out. This is extremely risky from Angel. And instead of going for the auto attack instead of just ulting out normally. She got stunned there. Could have been a little rough. Graves ult coming and Syndra ult combo. But Angel does have merc shred, so that makes it a bit easier. Alright. So, with a gold lead like this, Damon's favored to win by a good margin just because the scaling on blue side is not enough to overcome this kind of gold advantage. Graves is going to be absolutely one-shotting people, and the burst damage of red side synergizes really well together. Braum and the rest of the squad all do damage in really short bursts at like mid-range. Kennen, of course, gives them a lot of space, and that's going to make their game so much easier. So obviously Angel missing that Q is so bad if he wanted to play for anything more, but he obviously can't. Here comes Canyon, flashes the QR. The big thing here is the damage profiles of red side just make a lot more sense in these team fights. They're able to keep people at range, CC one person with like Syndra EQE or maybe even just Smokescreen or Jhin W and just blast them. And they all have their cooldowns down and they just run away and get in space with the Braum and they gain space with the cannon. Team fights are pretty much unwinnable, I think, for blue team. Blue team is playing off of this like 1-3-1 with the Akali and the Jax as their strategy, and then the Ezreal, Alistar, Nidalee as a core to survive. And also be able to engage on the mid lane. So I guess I can kind of see what their composition does now that I think about it. But that early game is so impossible to play with the champions they've picked. So I don't really know how they were expecting to survive that long. I hate to say it, and I rarely do say this, but this seemed like a lost game in draft. It just didn't seem playable. And Damwon, even though they didn't punish as hard as they could have, still did enough to the point where their game was relatively easy. That's 3 dragons. Cell's going to be taken as well. There's no way Suning can fight it. Their champions just can't get prio. Like the 1-3-1 starting to kick in around now, but they needed 2 items to make this 1-3-1 like truly lethal. And Kennen is just too far ahead of the Jackson gold, so he's always down half an item, which makes this one like side lane kill threat non-existent for the Kennen. And if you can't kill the Kennen on the side, your Jax is useless in the team fights if both of them are present against the enemy champions. It's a rough one. Okay, so this is probably Suning's best look possible. They chunk out the Braum. A little nervous heal there from Ghost, but that's okay. And then TP from Angel. I'm not sure why, actually. Maybe he thought that was going to be a fight. Man, this Cloud Soul is so tragic, because if it was any other dragon, Damwon insta-wins this game. Both Mountain, Ocean are really good, and of course Infernal is just damage, which fits their damage profile really well, actually. Okay, so this is like Suning's best chance to win. It doesn't matter if he dies on side, this is what he has to do. He has to just run it down the side lane and draw people to him. If he dies once or twice, it doesn't matter. Like, they have to find this opportunity for Jax to keep getting side lane farm. keep getting like closer to second or third item, and then maybe whacking down a turret or two if Damwon tries to play this death ball kind of composition. So Angel survives the Canyon's damage. That's so much damage, actually. Rift Herald's drop, but this is second Rift, so it doesn't matter. They're just going to take this before it even crashes, probably. Yeah. But it was running out, so they had to use it. And now, like, Ezreal's going to be pumping. This is Ezreal's probably strongest point in this entire game. He has Iceborne, he has Muramana. He's really hard to kill. Does Syndra and Kennen both one-shot him. He does a lot of damage, if I remember correctly from back then. This was, like, the strongest state he's ever going to hit this game. I think if he goes Borg third, that gives him a bit of a kick for third item, but this is pretty much it. So now you have Jax being somewhat close to second item. I think Akali has some gold to spend, although not a lot. And then you have first item approaching. I think that's Zeke's on Alistar. So once the Alistar hits that item, then I think, honestly, blue side should just coin flip a fight. Because this is not getting any better for them. And when I say coin flip a fight, I don't mean a 5v5. That's not going to go well. Have your Drax go on the side, have your Akali go on the side, run them down the lane, and have your 3-core just run around and try and find a 3v3. That's what they should do. So this is obviously super good from Suning. Suning, oh, Ben. Forcing flash from Showmaker is real good. I guess Showmaker E'd and missed, and so he was allowed to do that. Now Ben's in a bit of trouble. He's getting run down by Barrel. He's probably dead here, actually. Yeah, he's dead. Goodbye. But this is like, he had to go for this. Like, you can say Ben's trolling here, and he definitely did troll the early game. Like, getting killed by Graves is unacceptable when he has flash up. And deciding to burn it at the worst time possible. But this kind of play where he's drawing to them, he has to go for it. So now there's 3 people on the top side. They're trying to one-shot the dragon. This is not going to go well. I'm pretty sure Damwon just wins the game here. There's no way. Yeah, Suning just pieces the fuck out. And now Damwon secures their soul. That's not playable. They burned the teleport from the Syndra. But sad game. Now they have blue team just has to commit to the same plan, as bad as it is. They don't really, even if they cheese from a bush, they don't actually have that good of like a death bush kind of composition. So it's difficult to play like a vision system here. They have to go for more of the same. Kali runs it down a lane, the Jax runs down another lane, and then just delay the enemy push as long as possible. And if they fuck up, you take turrets, and then maybe you can win the 3v3 in the mid lane if they have to match, or maybe a 3v5 can delay long enough, because enemy siege is not the worst. Like, they're mid-range, not long-range, so you can kind of survive under turret. Their dive is not super great if Kennen doesn't have flash, although he does, so you have to be worried about getting dove. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. Just side lane galore here. Kali's on the top side. Nearly tries to get out. Nope, he's dead. Later, bitch. Yep. Goodbye. And that's Baron. Okay, I mean, this game's over, right? So we'll watch the rest of it, but this is just draft failure. Again, if you're gonna... Okay, this Baron now looks a little scary now. Angel's gonna... Oh, okay, it's a bit of a Baron throw. Okay, let's talk about this Baron. I actually have something to talk about. I didn't realize. So they kill the Nidalee and they start this. The Kennen is not part of this core. The Kennen is what stops the Akali from playing the game. So... especially considering he doesn't have teleport, which is strange. I guess he really thought he couldn't survive the side lane without exhaust, which is false, by the way. He definitely could. This is a big mistake. You can't start this Baron. Even the Nidalee's up for 30 seconds. Just pull your Kennen to you, and then once he gets there, you can try and pull it and force that fight, because you do win every team fight, but the Kennen gives you the space for your mid-range squishies to not die to Jax, Akali, and if they can't play the game, then the Ezreal can't do anything by himself. So this is just a failure of understanding how important Kennen is to their composition to give them that frontline space. And they, of course, they have no good answer to the Akali running around behind them. Ghost loses his mind with that flash, but doesn't really matter. And this is, Suning punishing their failure to understand the lack of Kennen. That's pretty obvious. They just didn't have Kennen. Jax had TP advantage, which is a manpower advantage, let alone worrying about the composition. So Nuggery might try for a 1v9 here, but it's actually pretty bad for him to burn flash now, unless he can stop their Baron with it, which they actually probably will Baron now that I think about it. He should chunk this Akali as much as possible here. Yeah, so now his job is to try and delay this Baron and see if he can stop them, but it's a unironically 1v5. And this is entirely a macro failure, and you can blame Nuggery for this, but just look at the lead up to this fight. So they just did Dragon here, and Kennen goes just to match this bot lane wave, and now he's stuck in the bot lane. Baron is the play. They catch the Nidalee here, and he's matching matching the Jax in the side lane. He just doesn't have TP to match. He has like one of two decisions. He can just say, hey, you can't start Baron, or if you're gonna start Baron, we're playing just to exit. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means that Showmaker is like in Africa. You have the Jhin and the Braum and the Graves sitting at the back of the pit. If the Jax TPs, which he has to, you guys just leave the pit and flash out on the Jhin, and then you basically have the Graves and Braum dash over. And they're just playing to burn Jax TP at that point. I don't think that's a great play. I think instead, once they get this pick, just have Kennen bolt up the top side, take the Baron, and then recall, and you give Jax bot turret. And then otherwise just have TP to match. I think the spellbook flop here is just a little tragic. Because I'm pretty sure he has TP. So just sloppy. Okay, the thing is, Suning getting this blue buff, or this Baron buff, I'm pretty sure it helps them a lot. This makes their 1-3-1 pack a punch. So this is no slouch. Like this makes Suning's game like super winnable now. But once this Baron goes away, if Suning can't take a bunch of side shit with the Baron buff here, it's gonna be a hard team fight once again. That hasn't changed, and that pretty much won't change unless they get a massive gold lead, which they are up now 1,000 gold. But the Cloud Soul is gonna make it very difficult to catch the slippery enemy team. So even though the Cloud Soul is not going to help directly in combat a lot, although it could, dodge an Ezreal Q, that matters, it's going to make the rotations to defend this Baron push a lot easier. One of the most interesting times where I guess Cloud Soul's actually decent in defending a 1-3-1. So maybe Cloud Soul's broken here, actually. So TB behind, they're looking to collapse. He's looking for this Ezreal kill. The Ezreal's no flash. The Ezreal's just dead. Okay, goodbye. And Sword might have just donated himself. No, he has to flash away. Which, at Alistar, that flash is basically being dead against that composition. Having flash is so critical. And it goes back to Damwon. The flank and the kill on the Ezreal made it easier, but I'm pretty sure this game was still really hard for Suning, just because that 1-3-1 threat is difficult to pull off against such a strong team fight composition where your three core is always in threat. Well, actually collapsing a bit nicely here. Not again. Nuggery's not part of the fight again. Where did Nuggery even go? Did he recall? Oh my gosh, he doesn't have TP. He recalls through the Akali and they just get manpowered again. Okay. I think they could just commit here. Obviously the Kennen doesn't have ultimate, so like leaving the Akali on the top side, she takes her super slowly. If they think they can 5v3 this and force the Akali TP anyway, then the same thing happens. But you just constantly have to count and make sure, okay, Akali has TP, I don't. So we either have to leave in the mid lane so we don't get collapsed on without our Kennen ultimate to stop her, which is the only thing that stops her in our comp. And mistakes like this just seem indicative of like a lack of understanding of the draft, right? So, okay guys, we need Kennen to stop Akali. Kennen doesn't have R or isn't with us. We can't stop Akali. We just die. Well, that makes sense. And just match that together and you play the game. Okay, we'll just skip forward a bit here because I think the setup is not super important. They're just jockeying for position. The vision setup from red side. They get first move into pit because their core is stronger. Angel with the flank is critical here because she can't play without running straight at them. That's pretty much impossible. Well, unless you have a full engage comp, which they do not. They have to go catch side waves here, and this is something that Suning obviously is better at doing with their 1-3-1, keeping the side lanes deep into the enemy territory, which is going to help them set up here, but it's not going to be insanely useful against the core. And this is really bad for Angel. Okay, so the Zhonya's is forced, and she does survive for a little longer, and they burn the Kindle to do it, but now she can't play the game. Both Jackson and Akali are just completely out of it. Okay, well, these team fights are so hard to play. Honestly, I think it was probably just better to, instead of playing for the Elder like this, is just to threaten end with the Jax and play 4v5. Because the team fight seems so impossible to play. Just returning to your win condition and knowing that, not egoing your opponents and somehow thinking you're going to win this team fight with the blue side composition, and just coin flipping the side lane. So what does that mean? Well, let's look at the setup here. So I know they're going to lose all like pit control if Jax doesn't come. Yes, I understand. But all they need to do is keep the Elder itself warded so they know if it started, and somehow get Jax to the top side without them seeing it. So let's see when the earliest opportunity is. Okay, right here, Jax doesn't have TP quite yet, neither does Akali, and they're TPing mid lane. Here comes the Elder setup. So if they wanted to coin flip this to be the best possible situation for Suning without team fighting the enemy comp, which seems impossible, then what you're going to have to do is just send Jax straight to the top side here and try and avoid whatever vision you might think they've placed, so they don't know where Jax is. Super critical, because if they know Jax is going to the top side, they have like 30 full seconds to just kick the enemy out of the area and the Elder without fear of any kind of team fight loss. But it's difficult to avoid those wards. I think having like Alistar sweep through that maybe a minute before that would make that a little easier. Because if Jax was managed to make it to the top side here and is now pushing top wave, this becomes so much easier for Suning to play, because now someone has to answer the Jax. Who's it going to be? And if it's going to be Syndra or someone, now the 44 becomes a lot easier to play, because Jax wasn't doing anything in the team fight anyway. Okay, this is just Angel getting caught, and you could say, oh, this is Angel's fault, but this is just really impossible to play. He's trying to get the flank. Having the rest of Suning far away, look at their champions. It's not like hyperscaling like Jinx, like some control mage like Orianna, some like hyperscaling jungler like Karthus, or something like that. It's just not. They're just not providing that much to these team fights to make the early game worth it. They just don't have any gold to play with. And even the Ezreal here is not actually at 3 items yet, compared to the Jhin 3 items, which is infinitely stronger at this point. The Jhin is absolutely blasting the enemy team if he hits them. Okay, so the poke comes in here, the Ezreal ult and the kite back, and now Damwon can't play, but they kill the Jax. They're going to have to return and do it all over again. It's a bit of a flop after they killed the Jax. They didn't manage to finish the Akali, which I don't know if was a mechanical mistake or not. Doesn't really matter. And then they get poked out too much on the next part of it instead of just pulling them into the Baron pit. Burning the Kennen ult for a pick is always going to be feels bad for Damwon, because that's what creates the space for their mid-rangers to survive. They burned quite a lot on that kill, actually. I think they burned like 2.5 ultimates. And I say and a half, I mean other things, to kill the Jax. So 3 ultimates generally constitutes 1 person. So 5v4 when you burn 3 ults and they have all of theirs is typically a hard one. But they run straight back to here. Jax has TP. He's TPing a bit far away. And here the Kennen has ults. Yeah, Suning can't ever fight this, but the poke is nice. Okay, returning to the Elder is ambitious. We'll put it that way. Ambitious is a good way to put it. And it's going to be... Showmaker is actually going to be the one to watch here, because he has to gain the most space with this QE. Here comes the Alistar. Oh, okay, they waited way too long. They gave Elder to the enemy. Now this Elder buff is going to make this fight close. And actually, Damwon's losing now, because the Elder, at least for the next a bit of time. So let's just talk about their indecision here. So you have Kennen ult to stop the Akali, so you have to trust that. So they should just push forward here super aggressively. Beryl is absolutely lost on this side of the fight. He needs to be forward, helping the Kennen create space. I have no idea why he's on the flank like he's playing Alistar or something. He needs to be part of this core. The enemy just doesn't have... The only AoE the enemy has is Jax QE and Alistar WQ. So as long as you can get through fast enough with those things not being a threat, then you're absolutely fine. The rest of this, like the Ezra Q and the Nully Spear, is one-time uses until you can get pushed through the pit. So they should... Okay, Braum not being here to take that damage and just Eing forward to block the Nully Spear and Ezreal Qs is kind of what screwed them here. But Nuguri has ultimate. Just push through this location. Instead of Eing backwards, just E forwards. Push the Akali back by chunking him as hard as you can. Like, look how much damage he's able to do and shut down the ability to do damage to the enemy team. Like, this team fight was unlosable with the comps here. Just completely unlosable. And a special thing too, if you can E the Alistar out of his combo as Syndra, you guarantee the win if you don't get like full 4-man comboed. Nearly so impossible to play into that. You can't jump in, you can only throw spears unless it's chained with CC. Like the Akali is going to be real cancer for them to deal with, but with the Kennen ult, it's not a big deal. So now, obviously, with Elder secured, Suning is playing the Baron, and they're just trying to snowball this game into a win. Still insanely difficult to team fight, but the Elder is going to help out a lot. So these spears and Ezreal Qs are everything. They need to land these. This is what makes their composition work. And so far, they're not landing too much. Ghost walks back into the Ezreal ult, which is tragic. Now he's half HP for fun, although he hits the mid wave. He actually Qs that, which is a mistake, but he has red buff, so it doesn't matter. He should auto attack twice and then Q'd so he could lifesteal more. All right. And the game goes on. So I think with the teleport being up on Angel and Jax being so close to third item, which is Death Dance, once he gets that Death Dance, I think he can actually play side. Just committing to this 1-3-1 now should be super effective for shooting. But you have to, of course, be afraid of Damwon just starting up the Baron and just taking it and then responding to your 1-3-1. And then once they do that, they can just push to an end for like a 5-man mid lane even with one quick Baron push. That's probably your biggest fear of Suning. So Kali running down the side lane is super good for them here. Bin is man-moding this. He's perfectly fine, but he has to burn ultimate to do so, which now his team fight is pretty much unplayable until he has that back up. He needs that for tankiness. Alright, so Showmaker has TP. He should be the one responding to this. He doesn't have Zanya's though, so getting Dove is actually a huge concern, because RE under turret, you're just dead. So Kenan's forced to respond to it. He once again doesn't have TP, which is brutal. So now they should have noticed and pressed tab, saw that the Kenan didn't have TP, and honestly they could have just played this out with their man advantage. I think that was their best chance Suning right there. So have Jax either keep running it down the top lane, which is a bit risky now because of the position that Damwon has, or have your Akali sit bot lane, keep the Kenan there, and then set up and just start keep killing the pink wards that they place in the pits, and look for a fight with the Akali TP advantage over the Kenan. And if you can do that, then you just win the game, because like I said, without the Kenan, they can't team fight against the Akali. It's impossible. The champions get ran. Nuggery's looking to catch the Alistar here. Alistar is in a lot of trouble. He has flash coming up in like 2 seconds, so maybe he can survive, but burning his flash would be super sad. WQ's in, flash is out. Oh my gosh, he just got one shot. Yeah, Kenan's balanced, guys. So good heads up play from Nuggery there, knowing that that guy should not have been allowed to do that. Angel is forced to ultimate, and Canyon didn't even burn anything. That's brutal. And now this is just Damwon's game. So they catch Sword Art because Nuggery is smurfing to identify that guy was alone. Sword Art messes up. He should have just probably... He could, like, the guy is in melee range. He should just W him away, which doesn't put you that far, and then flash away instantly. You should be fine. So he could have survived. I don't know if that actually helps him, though. Here comes the Baron play. The Kenan completely shuts down Akali, and this is like the whole joke, right? Akali just can't play the game. Like even with ultimate there, that fight was so impossible for the Akali to play. Yeah, so Kenan gets hard countered by like pretty much 2 things, right? He gets countered by like poke, if he can get poked out before a team fight, can't play, or he gets countered by like mid-range control. So like the Orianas, the Victors, things like that, where he can't cross a space effectively and can't like look for a good ultimate. If he gets like Ashe slowed as he's Eing forward and ulting, he's obviously in a lot of trouble. And then of course people can get out of his ultimate super easy. He also gets countered by things like Tristana ultimate and Vayne Condemn, people that push him back and make his ult not as good. So enemy team doesn't have any of those. They have Alistar W, but if the Alistar is dead, so that little combo right there is not possible for them in that team fight. Because of course if Akali goes in, let's say she had ultimate, and then Kenan ults the Akali and the Alistar W hits away, then the Kenan's not stopping Akali anymore. Akali can go wild. Okay, so TLDR of this game, early game generation from Damwon wasn't sharp enough. I think they could have pushed a lot more lead with the late invade into like triple sector in Italy, put her in the dirt, put her 3 levels down, take everything anyway. After that, Suning went for that tower dive top, which is pretty bad. Bin mechanically misplayed, didn't flash, so they got put behind for no reason against Damwon's slow-ass lead generation. Then after that, you have basically the Suning 1-3-1 game plan coming alive. They needed to hard commit to it more and just force enemy to spread out across the map. If you die, you die. Just slow down the game as much as possible by spreading them out and not letting them do anything with their lead in the 5v5 team fight with the draft. And then once they got the Elder, like they got the Baron off, they got the Elder, which is really smurf. There's no way they should ever get that. Then probably just recommit to the 1-3-1. This seems like the only way they win. Just team fighting like that and praying that the enemy misplays it and you win. I don't really like that way of playing, but it is a very LPL kind of way. And now that I remember tuning as LPL, just fight them regardless of composition. I think honestly, if you have that kind of mindset, just pick a team fight composition and don't pick 1-3-1, because especially a 1-3-1 is that draft was so bad because you just lose early game so hard. How are you supposed to split push when you're weaker than the enemy? It's a hard one. All right, going to game 4.